Well, hey, welcome to another Coach Video Tip. My name is Dan Foster. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and an Executive Coach here at Building Champions. And today I'm joined by two great friends and incredible leaders, Daniel Harkavy, our founder and CEO here at Building Champions, and Dr. Pete Fisher, founding partner of Human Investing. Daniel, Pete, and thank you guys for joining me today.
Great to be here. Great to be here with both of you.
Great to be here with both of you.
Awesome. Well, hey, friends, if you're not familiar with our friends over at Human Investing, they are just a fantastic group of people. They are independent fiduciary financial advisory firm based right here in Oregon, and they're dedicated to faithfully serving the financial pursuits of all people. And for the past 20 years, their team of experts has provided financial planning and wealth management services, and they always put their clients' best interests first. So, Pete, man, we are so glad. Daniel and I are both so happy that you could join us for this conversation today.
Yeah, super excited. Thanks a lot, Dan.
So, guys, we are living in some pretty interesting times. They're challenging, not just interesting. Everyone I know seems to be talking about and just feeling the weight of the market volatility, the uncertainty that we're all experiencing. And so I'm super excited that we get to have a conversation today around this topic. And we're going to explore just how this season is impacting how people lead themselves, and hopefully share some practical insights on how they can do that more effectively through all of this, through the uncertainty, through the volatility. How can they lead with greater intention and purpose? So you guys ready to jump in?
Yeah.
All right. So Pete, we're going to, since you're joining us, we're going to give you the first question here. So to start us off, what would you say is the dominant emotion that you're seeing people experience right now in this season of uncertainty and volatility?
Yeah, so my background is in behavioral economics, and my research is around human behavior. So we talk about that a lot here, and there's probably 3 or 4 words that all sort of coalesce around the same theme. I spoke with the gentleman that leads our 0 to basically getting into that affluent category. So we serve about 200,000 individuals through credit unions in the state of Oregon, and many of these people are just starting out. And so the primary emotion there has been fear, concern. But I think it's interesting. It's more concern about humanity. It's more concern about, is the human race still going to be okay? And less about their portfolio. Certainly we're hearing more conversation about portfolios, but a lot less focus on portfolios and more just about humanity. On the upper end, I would say there is definitely a nervousness. The unknowns around the economy, the unknowns around the tariffs.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing it in the headlines. It seems to be everywhere. You turn on the TV, you listen to a podcast, you read the news, whatever it is, it seems to be a headline that would cause that sort of fear. So, Daniel, from your perspective, how do we see this fear and uncertainty really show up in people's leadership during times of uncertainty?
Yeah. So, we're here on the screen today, mid-April 2025. And what I think everyone needs to take into account is that the uncertainty meter has been so high for the last 5 years.
Yep.
And, I've now been leading in businesses for almost 4 decades. And I just don't remember a period in the last 4 decades where I can identify a 5-year run where there's been so much uncertainty, whether it be global health or whether it be global policy with regards to health, or whether it be just social fractures and division, then the political unrest.
Yeah.
And then you intensify it all because we see it all live time. It's all happening right now, and the brain doesn't know how to really separate what's real in my neighborhood versus what's taking place over on the other side of the world. So how fear impacts leadership is it dumbs us down. Because if we go for prolonged periods of time with, just a lot of cortisol and a lot of adrenaline pulsing through our brain, it impedes our ability to be present.
Yep.
It limits our ability to innovate and to think proactive and creative. So often we're reacting. And then if, as leaders, we're surrounded by a whole bunch of people who are in fear mode, it's really hard to move an organization from defense to offense.
Yep.
So it's very difficult. And here we are, like I said, 5 years into difficult. And next week, as you know, Dan, I'll be on with a couple CEO roundtable groups midweek. And it's the conversation that we'll all be having, which is how do we lead ourselves, our teams, and our organizations to make a positive difference in the midst of everything we're dealing with.
Right. And I want to go back to something. I want to connect what you both said here. Pete, you started off by saying that there's actually a fear of not just the markets and how it's going to impact me financially, but a fear about humanity.
Yeah.
And so, Daniel, then you're talking about how we lead ourselves. And then there's also when we're leading teams, when we're leading people, when we're leading organizations, people are looking at us as a model and they're wondering, okay, how is Pete going to show up today? How's Daniel going to show up today? What's their mindset? And they take cues from us. And that's a lot of weight for a leader to have on their shoulders. Would you guys agree with that?
100%. And I heard a great quote from Bloomberg this morning that the individual is saying that economic uncertainty has never felt this uncertain. And I kind of smiled, and it took me a second to kind of grasp what they were trying to say. And I don't know. I mean, I tend to push back a little bit on that. I do, because it feels like, and you don't want to be disingenuous. You don't want to be dismissive of how people feel, because that's genuine.
Right.
But it feels like it's a crisis by a different name, because like I look back at COVID, oh my gosh, like they're talking about extinction.
Right.
Like, we're not talking about sort of self-inflicted pain. When I think back at even September 11th, like I was physically in those buildings a couple days before they went down.
Wow.
And our markets today are functioning quite well. Now, they're not going in the direction that people would want, but they're functioning. Like we were physically shut down, Dan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there was no trading.
Right.
And so all of this emotion built up over the course of a week, instead of like right now, people can go in and relieve themselves of their anxieties by trading. Now, that's not the right way to approach it, but nonetheless, I do think that even that headline, that economic uncertainty has never felt this uncertain, that sounds like to me somebody that wants to click.
Yep, clickbait.
and want somebody to maybe follow their article.
Yeah.
So let me riff on that for a second. What you'll see is that it's person by person. The reason Pete won't be feeling the levels of uncertainty, stress, or fear is because Pete's got rhythms, rituals, and routines, and he's got plans in place, and he sees the big picture. Not only that, he's got some salt in the beard, and that happens, as you get to see these things happen. He's talking about, September 11th, and there'll be some watching this that they don't have a real memory of September 11th.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it has to do with going through seasons, but also what is our self-care plan, and how do we ensure that we are operating from the most confident, shored footing that we can.
Yeah.
So Dan, to your question, does it feel like a lot of weight? It feels like an opportunity with responsibility.
Yeah.
And if my rituals and rhythms and routines aren't right, well, then it can feel overwhelming. But if they are, I get to walk with a pretty high degree of peace and gratitude, and a lot of confidence that I'm surrounded by smart people, and I'm greatly loved by an amazing creator, and a man of faith. I get to operate in that place where I'm confident things are going to work out. Not without some suffering and not without some pain, but it's okay. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey Dan, can I share two quotes that I think are important for those listening? One is from a Canadian American born philosopher and economist named Ken Galbraith. He's a giant in our industry. He's someone I look up to a ton. But he said the function of economic forecasting, right? That's the person that they're going to put up. They're going to have PhD, doctor, and probably one of the most stacked resumes that you're ever going to see.
Right.
And that person is going to be front and center. And those are the people Ken's talking about in this quote. He says that the function of economic forecasting is to make astrology look respectable. Like when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, that is so good.
Yes.
It's so good. But I think very specifically, though, the emotion to kind of wrap up my thoughts on that, the emotion that I would encourage would be patience.
Okay, good.
The emotion I would encourage would be patience, because as Buffett has said more than once, the stock market is a device. The economy is a device to transfer money from the inpatient to the patient.
Mm.
And I think there's so much power in that, but I will go back to the plan.
Yeah.
You know, you can have patient capital if you know you have cash and treasuries built up so that you can be that patient capital.
Yes.
But this is where extraordinary, I mean, seriously, in my 30 years of doing this, Dan, and it could get worse before it gets better. This is where you make your money. This is where businesses capture market share. This is where leaders flex hard, and where they set themselves up for the next 10 years. So what you'll see is these people that have made a mountain of money, or these businesses that are doing extraordinarily well, that seed was planted years ago.
Yeah.
In times just like now.
That's great, Pete. And so then that makes me think there's probably things that I shouldn't be doing, right? So if I am one of those listeners and watchers and they're saying, yeah, but Pete, I'm fearful and I am feeling the tug of that uncertainty. What are some things that, decisions that I want to be careful not to make when it comes to my finances, right? What do I want to make sure that I'm not doing during this time?
Well, I mean, I think kind of going back to something I feel like I've repeated time and time again, and this is whether you're a CEO and you're leading a company like myself, or you're an investor. Fear distorts perspective.
Yeah.
Fear distorts perspective. So, one of the things I've learned from Daniel, specifically in the 7 perspectives, like having that outsider, it's paramount.
Yeah.
And so what will end up happening is, like, we get into these echo chambers of, like, we go to our same podcast, we go to our same news outlet, and next thing you know, like, we've got all of these people around us confirming this narrative that we already had in our head. And that's where you have to surround yourself with people that maybe think differently, wisely.
Yep.
So for me, I feel like fear distorts perspective, and having that outsider's perspective is probably one of the most important things that people can do, and to be patient.
Yeah, great, man. Thank you. Daniel, we talk a lot about that, right? At Building Champions, we talk about how our beliefs, the narratives in our head, they end up shaping our behaviors, right? That inner gear impacts the outer gear. How have you seen these prolonged periods of uncertainty and volatility really influencing how leaders believe, what they believe about themselves, their teams, the future? And then how does that impact their behaviors?
Yeah, so I think what happens is, again, we can't put everybody into the same bucket. There are some where the prolonged battle has moved them to a place where there's a term for it. It's called learned helplessness. And learned helplessness has to do when you believe, as a result of so many different circumstances, that you cannot affect a better tomorrow.
Yeah.
These problems in this one area become pervasive, and they start to impact every area. So we believe that if we're not performing well here, then we're not performing well anywhere. And then we believe it's going to be permanent. We'll never perform well. And when you get to that state, it's very difficult to lead.
Yeah.
So, Pete suggested the perspective of the outsider. There are leaders who, in times like this, they will double down on healthy community. They will double down on having a healthy mentor, a healthy coach.
Yep.
They will take risks and upgrade or change some of their social settings.
Yeah.
They'll spend less time with people that are only seeing the fearful negative. And what they'll do is they will guard their hearts.
Mm.
There's a biblical saying from the Hebrew scriptures, you're supposed to guard your heart, for from it is the wellspring of life. Well, if our heart gets sick because there's so much negative coming in,
Yeah.
and we're not seeing the positive, then what happens is we will begin behaving that way.
That's right.
And what you see is, I mean, the most common signs on the leader dashboard that say, hey, your heart might be sick. You might not be seeing things as they really are. Your feelings definitely real, but the narrative causing them not necessarily true. You're going to see yellow lights or red lights on the dashboard when you wake up and you feel more anxiety, when your fuse becomes shorter, when you find yourself no longer able to really connect with those that you're talking to, and you find yourself thinking about 7 different things while you're in a conversation with a spouse or with your kids.
Yeah.
A red light, a yellow light on the dashboard when you wake up saying, I haven't worked out in like 9 weeks. I used to.
Yep.
A yellow or red light on the dashboard when you make a statement like this, which is, I will get to what's most important as soon as we get through this season. Yeah. I just need to get to Q4. Once we get to Q4, then I'll get back to the good, healthy routines. Yep. Those are all like these dashboard alerts. When you're not sleeping well, when you find yourself drinking too much, when you find yourself trying to escape through any sort of pain relieving, numbing escape. And that can be, buying the new fanciest of toys, or it can be medicating, so those are all the dashboard alerts that you'll see.
Now, you both have talked about, I've heard you say rhythms, routines, plans. That to me is, from a coach's perspective, I'm like, yes, because that's where the outsider can come in and really speak in to help you. So, Pete, talk to us a little bit about the financial plan and why that is so important right now, and the benefit of having it during times of uncertainty and volatility. And Daniel, I'll throw it over to you next to talk about the life plan. So Pete, tell us about the financial plan.
Well, I would say, first off, kind of to cap or to, affirm what Daniel's saying is that, to be sure, these are very, very different times.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a real thing. I mean, to think that things aren't different right now is insanity. So things are very different. But the real underlying question is like, so then what do you do? And one of the best pieces of advice I've gotten from a mutual friend, Guy Gray, said to me, you have to match the intensity of the moment. Like, so in other words, like you don't just show up for one coach call. Like I actually text my coach, thank you, Daniel, this morning, and said, I've got to meet again.
Yeah.
And so you match the intensity of the moment. So it's not business as usual. It's actually, you're not going to necessarily change things, but you're checking things.
Yeah.
You're going in and doing it, we call it a heat check. And so for us, the same thing with the financial plan. So speaking directly to the financial plan, you do not want to be boarding up your house in the middle of a hurricane. No way, no how. You don't do that.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is now you're going in and affirming your plan, which, what does that do? It calms you. It creates patience. It relieves anxiety. And so for us right now, for people that have a plan, you're going down there and you're just affirming, and you go, oh gosh, that's right. I have 4 years worth of cash or bonds in my portfolio. So yeah, is the volatility unnerving? Yes, it's freaking so unnerving. Then people have to check, like, how's my employment right now? How's my job? How safe is my job? If I was used to big fat bonuses over the last couple of years, which will change my comp, do I still have a reasonable expectation of that happening? And so you're going back and you're combing through your plan again. You're meeting with your professional. If it's with us, fantastic. And you're making sure that you're checking and rechecking and checking and rechecking. It doesn't necessarily mean changes. Any big changes that we see, Dan, right now, are just little tweaks, little adjustments, not big wholesale moves. When that happens, typically in the middle of the hurricane, people lose,
Yeah.
and there's really no. It's very difficult to recover, and ultimately, it's people's money. It's ultimately people's decision, so they get to
Yeah.
do what they want with it. But it would be against our good counsel right now to do anything other than revisit the plan,
Love
revisit
it.
it again, and just make sure that all your assumptions are correct.
Awesome. Thank you, Pete. Yeah. Daniel, how about for you on the life plan?
I look at the life plan is it's the plan where I and I alone have control in each of these areas of my life for how I show up.
Hmm.
And when we all build our life plans, we build it with an understanding that none of the accounts we can actually control the response in the other individual in the account. So if it's my marriage account, I can't control how Sherry's going to show up, but I can control how I'm going to show up regardless of what's going on with her. My health, I can't control whether or not I'm going to get sick, but I can control how I'm going to proactively care for myself so that I minimize the risk and I maximize potential for energy.
Hmm.
As external situations change, as my financial account changes, right? What I do is I look at that life plan to make sure that my plan is solid, and then I adjust wherever needed.
Yeah.
So, a life plan in times of turmoil can be really a very grounding thing for us to look at, because what it does is it puts us back into the driver's seat. In times like today, fear creeps in because we feel like we've lost control.
Hmm.
And the way the brain was designed, the way we humans were designed, we like control. We like a certain sense of predictability. We like to know that things are going to be where they should when they should.
Yep.
And when everything's upset and chaotic, well, then it's overload stress time. So, I would just say for any of those that are listening, the coach tip for you is number one, build a life plan if you don't have it. Number
Yep.
two, if you've got it, be reviewing it regularly so that you're ensuring that your calendar is matching the commitments that you've made in your life plan. And the more that your calendar matches those commitments, well, then the more you know you're winning in the areas of your life that are most important to you, regardless of what's going on around you.
Love it. Yeah. Fantastic. So get the plan in place, review it regularly against what actually is happening in your disciplines, in your routines. Like you were saying, if you haven't worked out in 9 weeks, get back to that plan, look at
Yeah.
your vision for what your health account was, and just start taking steps in the right with the right disciplines to get that account a priority again. Love that. Pete, you mentioned plans as well, and I think you already said like review it regularly, but there also is a time for adjustment, right? So walk us through like, you've got the plan, you're reviewing it regularly. What does it look like to adjust it and live it out?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think again, just kind of going back and saying, the perspective of market downturns are inevitable. Market downturns are absolutely painful,
Yep.
but they're also surmountable. So that's from a guy named Shelby Davis, who his family's run one of the oldest large cap value based mutual funds in the world, and we think of it that way. It's like get your perspective in place and then go through with the right perspective. Hopefully, it's with an outsider, and make proper adjustments. I talked to a client yesterday, and I said, "Has anything changed?" And they go, "You know what? Actually, yeah, things have changed. Here's what's going on in my personal life having to do with a family member. I'm actually going to need to be the backstop for them."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Okay,
Yeah.
that's a reason for change."
Yep.
And so again, we're going in and we're doing planning around that specific change. So yeah, Dan, think things do change, but that would be one reason.
Yeah.
Another thing that we do is tax loss harvesting. So you're being proactive and taking advantage of losses in the market
Yep.
and capturing those losses. There's also active rebalancing. Not all of the markets have reacted the same. So you might see the S&P's down 20, but EFI Europe or Far East might actually look a little bit better. So you might be selling some things that have done well and recycle them into things that haven't done as well. But do nothing sometimes is the action.
Yeah.
The action to do nothing.
That's right. Be patient, like you were saying, right?
Be patient, man.
Yeah.
Be patient.
Yeah.
So
As I listen to you both, it just, and you've said this word multiple times, both of you have, the outsider, that outsider's perspective is so important, because we create these plans, we have our clients create these plans, we help our clients create these plans, but then something like this happens and that human nature kicks in. And I'll be honest, even for myself, like I am sitting there going, oh my gosh, I want someone who's maybe 10 years out ahead of me, maybe 15 years out ahead of me. I need them to speak into this, and I need that outsider perspective to just help me check my thinking, like you were saying, Daniel, to make sure, Pete, that I'm not making decisions that are rash, and just maybe being patient. So just talk to us about the power of the outsider, and just why having that guide is so important during times of uncertainty and volatility.
you want to go ahead, Hark?
Sure. Oh, me or you?
Yeah, you're up, buddy.
Well, yeah. So we're coming into our 30th year of being the outsider,
Yeah.
and I have seen from my youngest of years through right now, I've just seen the immense benefit of having somebody speak into my life, somebody who helped me to see who I could be, somebody to breathe a bigger vision into me, somebody to course correct me in a truthful, caring way when I start to drift off point. So I need the perspective of an outsider. I would hate to live in a room of mirrors to where I'm stuck with me. We wouldn't be here. So
You're a handsome lad, though, Hark. You're a
it would
handsome
not be
lad.
good. You're kind, not good, and you're a liar. But I I really believe that when you look back at the earliest of historical writings, you see the way that young humans were raised, and they were mentored.
Mm-hmm.
Young men age 9, 10 began their mentorship, their apprenticeship, and 13 they graduate in many cultures to manhood. But
Yeah.
that doesn't happen on its own. It happens with somebody been there, done that, helping them to experience things that will challenge them so they start to grow confidence.
Right.
Well, the same's true in leadership today. And you guys have mentioned the 7 perspectives. Dan and Pete, you'll both remember that when I first created the model, it was 5 perspectives. And I wasn't ready to write the book. And then I realized, okay, one perspective needs to be separated. Current reality and the customer perspective actually need to be on their own, because the best leaders do exercise discipline in both. And still at 6 perspectives, it wasn't time. And the story goes like this. I had early morning, shower time, one of the bubble thoughts. And I was just reflecting on the day before, where I had just meetings with executives who both of them just wanted the perspective of the outsider. They just wanted to bounce things off that second brain to say, am I thinking right? Am I seeing it right? Could there be more? They wanted somebody who had enough care and competence to just go and journey there with them.
Yep.
And it was when I had that realization where I said, you know what, there's a 7th perspective, and the outsider is really, really required in order for you to effectively lead yourself and be the best you can be. So
Yeah.
Thanks,
that's my
Dan.
take.
Yeah, Dan. I mean, it's for us, it's one of the most important parts of weathering uncertainty.
Yeah.
Is having someone who is objective and is not emotionally tethered to your money in the way that you are. And that outside voice of
Yes.
that calm can help people think clearly and
Yep.
ultimately remind you what really matters.
That's right.
So yeah, for us, that voice of the outsider, similar to Hark, we've been in that role for 20 years now at Human Investing. And also to note, we've been engaged with your firm for just as long. So,
Yeah.
we have Shannon Eckman, who's a brilliant coach and counselor for our firm, and we resonate with the message from Building Champions. So thanks for all the work that you guys do to help small firms like us.
Yeah.
And, be better and deliver well for our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And the word that keeps coming to my mind with the perspective of the outsider is what you've said today is wisdom. Like I need that perspective from someone who has the wisdom, like you said, Daniel, a little bit of salt in the beard, right? Or a little bit of gray hair, whatever it might be. It's experience where they can calmly walk you through your plan and have you look at it and adjust where necessary, but can remind you of your goals, your priorities, and can also just help you to see what's on the other side of this uncertainty and maybe on the other side of this volatility. So I want to thank you both for your wisdom and your encouragement and everything that you shared today. Really appreciate you both being with us. Hey, if you're watching, and I want to leave you with this. You don't have to navigate this season alone. If you're ready to take the next step in leading yourself well, your team, your organization, visit buildingchampions.com to download our free life plan, to learn more about us and schedule a complimentary session with us. If you're someone who's listening and you're looking for trusted guidance with your finances, if you're an organizational leader like I am, where you're looking to have someone help you with your 401k and really help you with how you're providing benefits to your employees, head over to humaninvesting.com to just learn more about building a values-based financial plan for yourself or for your company. You can connect with someone there who can help you as well. So wherever you're at right now, this is your opportunity to pause, reflect, and move forward with clarity and purpose. So Peter, Daniel, thank you both so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.